The fishing village air was thick with salt and sorrow. Kojo held his mother, the warmth of her hug a stark contrast to the cold fear coiling in his stomach. He whispered promises of a better life, his words a desperate prayer against the sea breeze. In his hand, he clutched their family's entire savings, a small, worn bundle of hope. The bus to Accra was a cacophony of noise and bodies, a rolling metal beast carrying him away from everything he knew. As the village shrank in the distance, the hope in his eyes fought a silent battle with the overwhelming fear of the unknown. Accra was a city that chewed you up and spat you out. The vibrant streets that once seemed full of promise quickly revealed their sharp edges. Kojo learned the hard way about trust, his naivety exploited, his meager savings dwindling with each cruel lesson. He found himself alone, cheated, and harassed, the city's relentless rhythm a constant reminder of his failure. One night, the rain hammered against the tin roof of his tiny shack, a relentless drumming that echoed the pounding in his chest. He stared at a faded photograph of his family, their smiling faces a painful testament to the promise he was failing to keep. The weight of it all became unbearable, and hot tears streamed down his face, mingling with the raindrops leaking through the roof. He was at his lowest point, the thought of giving up a tempting, venomous whisper in the storm. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a city washed clean. As Kojo wandered the streets, empty and defeated, a scent of warm spices cut through the damp air. A kind-faced woman, a food vendor with eyes that had seen their share of hardship, called out to him. She didn't ask questions. She simply handed him a plate of hot rice and stew. That simple act of kindness, a moment of human connection in a city of strangers, was the spark he needed. It reignited a fire within him, a stubborn refusal to be extinguished. With renewed resolve, he took his last remaining savings, not to buy a ticket home, but to purchase a battered, broken-down motorcycle. It was a heap of rust and wires, but to Kojo, it was a second chance. He spent sleepless nights under the faint glow of a single bulb, his hands covered in grease, learning the machine's every quirk and flaw, willing it back to life. Then came the opportunity, a single delivery that could change everything. A major merchant, a man whose business could make or break a small-timer like Kojo, needed a package delivered urgently across the chaotic city. This was his make-or-break moment. He loaded the package, his heart thudding a nervous rhythm against his ribs. The city was a maze of honking cars and bustling crowds. Halfway there, disaster struck. The motorcycle, his metal phoenix, sputtered, coughed, and died. Panic seized him, cold and sharp, but he couldn't give up. Not now. He got off and started to push. He pushed that heavy machine for miles, his muscles screaming, sweat and grease streaking his face. He navigated through gridlock traffic, ignoring the jeers and impatient horns. He was a man, possessed, driven by the image of his mother's face and the weight of his promise. He finally arrived at the merchant's office, gasping for breath, his body aching, his clothes torn and filthy. The merchant was just getting into his car, his face a mask of impatience. He took one look at Kojo's disheveled state and dismissed him with a wave of his hand. "You're late. I'll find someone else." At that moment, something inside Kojo broke. All the struggle, the pain, the desperation poured out of him. He wasn't just a late delivery boy. He was a son, a brother, fighting for his family's survival. In a torrent of words, his voice thick with emotion, he told the merchant everything. He spoke of the fishing village, of his mother's sacrifice, of the night spent fixing the bike, of the dream that refused to die. The merchant stopped, his hand on the car door, and truly looked at Kojo. He saw not a failure, but a fighter. He saw the raw, desperate honesty in his eyes. Slowly, he walked back and handed Kojo the contract. The paper trembled in Kojo's hand. He looked at it then, at the merchant, and the dam of his emotions finally burst. He collapsed to his knees, sobbing with relief, with gratitude, with the sheer, overwhelming release of a battle won. Months later, the scene is transformed. The single, broken-down motorcycle is gone. In its place stands a small but growing fleet of delivery bikes, gleaming under the Accra sun. Kojo stands beside them, no longer looking like a boy lost in the city, but a man who has carved out his own place in it. He pulls out his phone and dials a familiar number. When he hears his mother's voice, his own cracks. "Mama," he says, his voice thick with unshed tears. "I did it. We're going to be okay." On the other end of the line, he hears not just his mother's voice, but the joyful cries of his entire family, a sound more beautiful than any success. The call ends and Kojo looks out at the city skyline. It's the same view, but he sees it with new eyes. He is no longer an anonymous face in the crowd, a hustler struggling to survive. He is Kojo, an entrepreneur, a son who kept his promise. A single tear of pure joy traces a path down his cheek, a testament to the long, hard road he has traveled. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that celebrates the power of the human spirit.